This is From A to B, presented to you by Osmo.com. I'm Andrew. I got Ben with me. I got member of the team, Tim Frank, with me. This is our Tuesday golf show. Today we're going to break down the CJ Cup at Ocean Vista Golf Club in Fargo, North Dakota. Just kidding. I don't think that's true, but today is the kickoff of NBA. So my friends here are going to do the heavy lifting. I will be hosting. Ben, what's happening, man?
Nothing. It's we are really sports rich. We were talking about before the show. You can, what I suggest at 5 o'clock, get a couple MLB lineups in. Then you got NBA at night. Tomorrow you got golf lock. Thursday you got NFL showdown. Play some hockey every day and hit for the anti-cycle. You could go 0 for 5 this week. That's certainly a difficult achievement, but this is your time to potentially do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Timmy Pucks, you're living up in Minnesota. Got the mustache going already. I mean, are you excited for this?
Oh yeah, the more you play, the more you win. So the more slates, the more sports. Just print fest.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the start of NBA tonight. Not really, but yeah, it's golf, college football, NFL. I try to stick to that. Anything outside of those three, and it's pretty much I'm just throwing money away.
It happens. I love basketball is my favorite sport, so I really love it. It is a very difficult and DFS sport. Just keep that in mind because it's so low variance, and the less variance, the harder it is to beat the rake, honestly, because you just have to play sort of optimally and then get these tiny edges. So, but yeah, what were you saying, Ben?
No, I'm with you. Like NBA, I love the NBA. I'm excited for it, but for DFS, right with Tim, obviously golf, college football is I love college football. That was huge that it came back. But we'll late swap is back. We'll see how that goes. Easier to manage on a warm-up slate tonight with only 2 games.
Absolutely.
But, now we got golf that locks at, tomorrow, basically late afternoon for you.
Yes. It is essentially, it's a very similar tournament to what we had last week. No cut on the Asian swing. We got a few better players here this week, which is kind of nice, but still sort of a we'll see what happens, and don't really, I wouldn't start counting that money until Saturday night or whenever it ends, Tuesday morning. Tim, what do you think of this course, man?
Yeah, this is a tough one because last year was the first year they played this event, so we only have a 1-year sample size to go off of, which can be pretty dangerous, and I think probably will lead people to maybe overvalue what happened last year. And it was extremely windy last year, so that's kind of throws a wrench in everything. But we got a 7,200 yard par 71. It was the 4th hardest course last year. I think a lot of that was due to the wind. It was real windy. I don't know if it was all 4 rounds or 3 of the 4 rounds, but that's really what held scoring down. So I don't know. I mean, we'll have to look. We'll have to see if it's going to be windy again this year. If it's not, it could play much easier. So I would kind of caution people against kind of trying to take too much out of what happened here last year. It was only a 1-year sample size, which basically is meaningless, and the weather kind of made things a little bit chaotic. But like you said, no cuts, about an 80-man field, just like last week. A little bit better field than we had, though. So I'm going to try to kind of stay away from what happened last week, because last week was such a birdie fest. The scoring environment is going to be so much different. I'm going to try and, not look at what happened last week and kind of say, well, these guys played well, because it's a totally different environment. Last week was ridiculous, 26 under winning. So I'm kind of throwing that out. But I don't know. I'm going to keep it down the middle as far as not really distance or accuracy off the tee. Always looking at approach game, always looking at birdie or better percentage. So I don't think there's any really one key stat I'm honing in on this week.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I'm with you that I think it will play a little bit easier. It's a par 72, right?
Yep. Is it 70? Did I say 71?
It's cool.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of elevation, not anything crazy, but enough. I don't know. It's 2,000 or 3,000 feet, which I don't remember my physics that well. But say that's even 2%, then all of a sudden you're looking at a par 72, 7,000 yard course, which is crazy short. So I think there will be. There's potential for scoring. It's right on an island. It is in an island off the coast of South Korea. It's not actually in Fargo, North Dakota. I don't know where I got that mixed up, but
I would go if it was, because I could make it there. So.
It's true. Just kidding. That was a callback joke to anyone who watched our show last year. It is in South Korea, right on the water, so that can be a little bit, it can be sort of all over the place. Right now, the forecast is a little bit easier wind-wise than it was last year. We're looking at a lot of sort of 8 to 12 mile an hour winds, that's like the higher end of, like, when it gets much past that, that's when you start to worry. I think at this level, it's not going to be a big deal unless there's gusts. Do you have anything different there, Ben, that you think?
No, I mean, I think it's kind of the narrative out there that it's not going to be as difficult as we saw last year. That was brutal. No one had really seen the course. There's a lot of guys going back for the second time now. That'll help. And the wind should be more manageable. I don't know, obviously. It seems like at any tournament, they can deal with wind. It's when it's changing directions, when it's swirling, that's when you get into trouble. Who knows what we'll see? We'll keep an eye on it. Of course, yeah, the fairways are generous. It seems like you can take advantage of it, but last year we saw trouble on the greens for guys. I don't know if it's just tough, different, what they're used to. It is bent grass. And then the elevation change, that we've seen that a couple times. It takes, precise distances are a little off. So those things, they add up, but I would be pretty surprised if it plays, it was one of the hardest courses of the year last year. I do not think we see that again.
No, nor do I. And it just, we're on one where everything is easy now, it seems like. So I don't know if the equipment is always getting better, and that's a large part of it for sure. But, second time for these guys seeing this place too. I imagine that makes it a little bit easier. Still loading. What's up with you, man? We're just talking a little golf, getting ready for all the sports because there's a lot of them right now. Yep. A lot of players this week. There's some real dudes. We got, instead of just JT at the top, we got JT, Brooks, Day, and Matsuyama are kind of the premier players here. Leishman is also clocking in above 10,000, partially due to the win last week, partially due to him losing to JT in a playoff last week. So that's kind of the headline of the field. To anyone who is watching, if you have a second, if you're watching this on YouTube and if you could like it, that would be really helpful to us. Makes us look good. We need all the looking good we can do, especially with Tim starting his mustache early.
I couldn't break it out in week one. I couldn't break the pedophile look out in week one. I had to kind of ease into it. So
early start on November. I like it.
Head start on November. Yeah.
Sure.
We'll see how long my wife can. Yeah, she hates it, so it'll be a daily battle with this. See how long it'll go.
Excellent. We're all about the daily battles here. That's what we do. Yeah. Battle with our lineups. All right, Ben. How are you starting your lineups, or are you starting your lineups with these expensive guys? Probably not. But what do you got?
Yeah, this isn't like last week where we talked about it. To me, and I think for a lot of people, it was JT, and then there was a gigantic gap. There's some other play. There's a huge prize pool, and that brought in some talent. I still think he's the favorite, and that's fine. I certainly plan to start some lineups with him, but you have some more options. And I think not that he won't be popular, but it will temper it somewhat. It's not going to be the massive ownership that we saw last week. So obviously, I think all in all, he's the safest, but Day is the guy that I kind of looked at that's maybe a little different. If it plays where he can lean on short game, we know how good of a putter he is. You talk all the time. A guy who can make 15-footers at a clip in a non-cut is so valuable just because he can score. So if these fairways are generous, which they are, maybe that alleviates some of his spraying because that's something he does a lot. And we'll see. But yeah, I like him. And then Decky's the guy I really don't know. We'll see. I'm trying to figure out if he's actually hurt. He pulled out last week. I don't know about it. You never know with Decky. But yeah, for me, JT and Day kind of stood out. But, you can go anywhere with the big dogs.
Yeah, I'm with you. Day, this seems like a perfect course for
us,
Day.
Right?
Yeah. Where it's, you're going to be relying on short game and you're not penalized for being a wild man off of the tee. That certainly looks good. to me for him. Tim, what about you? You got favorites up at the top?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I said the same thing for like a year straight now. I'm preferential to JT. He seems like um even of all the golfers in the world, maybe the most consistent elite golfer that we have. Maybe him and DJ. But yeah, the guy just the upside is always there, and he's just played for like the longest stretch now, such consistently good golf that I will always play him. I always like JT. I'm with you guys on Day. I played a ton of him towards the end of last year when he seemed like he was kind of severely underpriced week in and week out, and he just never quite got there. He played decently, but just I don't know, something seemed like it was missing out of his game. I'm preferential to Decky, who towards the end of the season really seemed like he was turning it on, especially the last couple events. And he has a decent short game as well. It's not as good as Day's, but nobody is as good as Day around the greens. But Decky, he can get up and down as well. And I just really like the way he finished off last season. I don't know what was going on last week. I didn't even hear. Did you guys hear anything about why he withdrew? If it was, yeah. I haven't heard anything, but I would say I like Decky probably second best of all the guys at the top. I don't know how much Brooks or Dale have. Obviously, you can make a case for Brooks at any course. He can be amazing. Just not quite the consistency that I'm looking for. So yeah, I'd say JT at the top, and then Hideki for me, who really he seemed very close at the end of the year, right around the Tour Championship time.
Yep, I think that's totally fair. Part of why I think Day had some trouble towards the end, and part of probably why his price was coming down, is because a lot of those courses towards the end are tight fairways and tough rough, and that can be a real that just sets Day back quite a bit. The first shot it's really nice to be in good position after that. Granted, he is such an intense sprayer that he could he's getting to like Phil with distance, like Phil 10 years ago levels where he could hit it a mile, but you don't know where it's going. So a little scared of that. And yeah, I think, the thing with JT, like I'm with you, Ben, and Tim, I'm sure I know you felt the same, that JT was totally a different level from everyone else. But with that came like stupid ownership. Like he got to like 50% in some tournaments. And not even higher stakes. It was weird. I ended up going I played him about 60-70% in the tee to green, the giant one. But in the 555, I decided to go without him just because I thought he would be even higher on there. He actually wasn't. He was still like 48% owned, which I thought was like a reasonable fade. Looked pretty good. And then JT just did JT. He shot a 64 on the last day, still came in fifth. It was a slight advantage to fade him in that tournament, but like it wasn't anything major because he ultimately came back.
That's kind of what Tim was kind of just alluding to. True, it's crazy. Like it felt like he was off consistently over the 4 days, and he came in fifth.
Mm-hmm.
He just doesn't. It's the DJ thing where even when he doesn't have it, he doesn't kill you to the extent where it's like, oh, I'm a dead man.
Right, and I think this week with some other real names up top, he might be more in the, 30-32% range as opposed to pushing 50, which I think is going to be nice. So certainly buying a little bit there. All right, next group, we do have, a few more real players. Tim, you want to walk us through these guys, starting with Leishman?
Yeah, not a fan of this range. Kind of again this week, Leishman just seems extremely overpriced. He played great last week, but really last year he kind of had a down year. So it's like when you combine, he played well at this event last year, coming off the win. That's just too much. I think he's just kind of in a little bit over his head. I don't love a ton of guys in this range. Maybe Hatton, who has been, he's a really streaky player, finished second at the Dunhill Links, which is a pretty strong field European Tour event 2 weeks ago. But besides Hatton, I don't really think I'll be targeting any guys in this range. I like JT, like I said, I like Decky, and then I'll probably be dropping down a little bit like I did last week into that 7K range where I think there's a lot of value again this week. Didn't work out last week, but yeah, that's kind of just what I feel comfortable with. So aside from Hatton, who seems to string together a lot of good finishes and played pretty decently at the end of last year on the PGA Tour, he's probably maybe my only target in this range.
He's really becoming one of those guys that, you got to respect a little bit because he can be really, really bad, but man, when he shows up, it's scary. I do think that feels like an overprice, but maybe it will to other people. Casey loses his luster a little bit in this kind of event. Obviously, you prefer him at the no cut because he is just one of the most consistent guys out there, and that price is pretty rough. Like if he goes out there and just does Paul Casey things and comes in 8th, like you're not particularly happy with that at 9,900. Billy Horschel just keeps doing. I don't know. Ben talks.
No. Yeah, this is unlike the guys we just talked about. This is the top end of a range that feels interchangeable. It's based on a little form, little history, but all in all, I don't know how much better Billy Horschel is than guys that you can find a couple $1,000s cheaper. And that's where it gets tricky. That's where ownership becomes pertinent. I will say that Hatton to me is, like you guys, he's kind of a wild card because I honestly don't know how good he even is at this point. Like it feels like an overpriced. Maybe it's not. He's shown up in some big fields. He's played well. He's got a lot of downside, but it's a non-cut. I think that does help him in particular. And then Woodland played well last week. I know a totally different situation, but he's another one. He will benefit from the way this course is set up. He played here last year. He didn't play well, but he's played it, which I think is somewhat important. It's not a prerequisite, but I prefer that my guys were A, in Malaysia last week, and B, in Korea last year. So I look there, but you see guys like Cam Smith and a couple other where it's like I wouldn't fault you. This is still in the up here. Of course, if you want to play these guys, you can play them, but I'm not overly interested in this range. Similar to Tim.
Signs of life from Noren for you.
Well,
your boy.
Yeah, we got to play. Of course, they're playing Noren. Maybe it's going to be tough, so you got to play Noren.
Comes preloaded in those lineups.
Oh God, that's another guy. Leishman, thank you, Mark. I finally got you on a week that you weren't shocked last week. Yeah. I don't think he's ever done that before, where he's been good at under 20% ownership. Noren is another guy where I feel like I've had a tough time with him. He's often very popular and crushes, and then has been really unpopular. And I've jumped on because I think he is a pretty quality player. Game should fit here. He's another like really good short game guy. Ben, you seen anything from him lately?
Not in particular, to be honest. I mean, he's
all those T28s in the playoffs didn't get you rev back up.
He's a guy. I do think a change of scene. He's going to get there. I think he's good enough that on the tour we're going to see some things. He almost won that. He lost in the playoff today, I think, but it's been tough with him. You're right. We've seen some really ugly performances, particularly in majors and stuff, where it seemed like he was about to take a step and he didn't. He's the kind of guy that I'm going to use, depending on how many lineups I make, but I would use him in specific things. If I think it's going to play tough again, if I think I can lean on the short game, the scrambling, stuff like that. Because, some of his tee to green has been a little erratic here and there. I don't think the non-cut's particularly good for him either. The price is pretty premium. So not a guy that I'm super in love with. Griot's right there, who guy just churns him out. I know he's low variance as you talk about, but he's just great. Like I'm definitely going to be going back to him after a good showing last week.
Yeah, good player. Does Louie become chalk again?
Probably.
I think probably, right?
That's when you jump off.
Louis is a jump off when he's chalk kind of guy. Yeah, for sure. Question from the chat. Hey, Carl. Morning, gents. I hope is this your second or third morning?
Carl.
Also, still loading wants to know, do you guys watch these golf matches or just review stats? We all watch a fair amount. I was the only one that watched last week because I had a sweat, and I am on the West Coast, and it was just an oddly perfect time. These are also kind of stupid events, so we're just kind of throwing in some tournament lineups and having a good time. But for me, it was like prime time. I live in LA, and it was from 7 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. to watch the tournament. It was like, all right, I can get down with this. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, a non-cut in the Asian swing is not exactly the best setup for DFS and stuff. So I think
we're also in bed by 8:45. So
this is true. But I have a lot of TVs around this apartment, so I can watch from anywhere. But yeah, no, I mean, it's tough to watch these events. We don't have Shot Tracker, and that, as we've talked about, you're unable to get the data, so you're flying blind. Like, we know how this course played last year, but we don't know what exactly guys did, and that makes it really difficult.
I just wanted to say, I think you can learn a lot from watching the golf, but also you have to realize that unlike the other sports, you're not seeing all the action. You're seeing some shots from the leaders and
bizarre shots.
Yeah, and bizarre shots, and you really people can get really locked in on something that they saw, like, oh, sorry, Ben, Cantlay has a terrible short game because they watched the Valspar and he like hit 2 bad sand shots, when in reality that you haven't seen, you saw like 1% of his sand shots over his whole year. And people can really get stuck on stuff like that. But I do think that watching helps. I do think you can learn things from watching, especially about the course and about players that doesn't show up in stats. But sometimes you have to be careful not to really overdo, because you have to overdo it because you have to realize you're not seeing every shot. It's not like watching a football game or looking at like the All-22 where you can see everything that's going on every play. You're only seeing what they're showing you, and 95% of the action you're not seeing at all. So
it's a really good point. You mostly see meltdowns from the top players and then like random scrubs hit darts to 6 inches.
Yeah.
Or like 80-foot putts.
If your guy isn't in contention and they cut to him, it's either going to be really good or really bad. Like, there's no in between. He's either made it or it's hit the flagstick and ricocheted into the water or something like that. And it's a good point. I watched.
That's called the Rory, I believe.
Yeah, that's an ode to Rory. Absolutely. Yeah, you do. I think it's really important to watch. I rely a little more on feel, but it's definitely a balancing act. You can see one shot and you end up biasing yourself, like, oh, that guy caught such a lucky break. You base his whole how he played on that one break. And that's not an exact science, and then you can really get into trouble there. So it's a piece of information, but you still need to look at those stats and get a real synopsis of how bad Cantlay's short game truly is. We don't get the full picture just from seeing him shank a couple in the bunker.
He's totally fine, Ben. He's totally fine.
He is now.
Yeah, I'm a pretty heavy data guy, and I used to be in sort of team like don't bother with, but you certainly can pick up stuff from watching it, especially about the courses. I think that's a good point. It's more about the courses sometimes than the players.
Yeah.
All right, so there are more players here.
It's debatable.
Yeah. Where did we get to? We got to Louie Snedeker. What is going on with him? He was trash last week.
Yeah.
Then there is Grace, who you like if it plays hard. There's certain guys you want to stack him with. I would not do that if it's going to be easy. Ryan Moore, Kyle Stanley, Kevin Na, and then the web.com phenom Sung J M at his home course. Also a nugget from Carl.
Yeah, this is his home course. Seems like he's a pretty talented guy. I don't think it's just to fire him up, but it's got to help that he's probably played the course a ton.
Yeah, I'm not playing that guy at 8K. I don't think, but
okay.
I don't know. Are either of you guys interested in a guy who was pretty good on the web.com tour? He was not good. I mean, he was fine. He had like a win, but it was a lot of 40s in his last 5-6 web.com starts.
For me, I think that's the equivalent of a football team being up, 50-3, and then they give up 14 in the fourth. Like, he had got his card. And I don't know, it's one tournament. He looked very good at the Safeway. My biggest thing is everybody likes this guy, and they got paid off at the Safeway. And I'm not banking on, if he's very popular, I'll go to Kevin Na if I have to.
I'm there.
I'm not as high on him as other people are. If you look, he started the web.com tour last year with a win and a second place finish, 2 events in the Bahamas. And I mean, when I say those are the most atrocious fields you'll ever see, like, they are awful. And
those
that's
like Euro Tour events, man.
Oof.
Almost as bad as the big Euro Tour events. That's how bad the fields are. No, but I mean, so it's like he started off like with a win in a second, and for the the point system and the money and everything, that's just a huge. He got out of the gate, really quickly. And yeah, was he the wire best player on the Web.com tour last year? Yes, but I mean, he didn't seem like he was this unstoppable force. Like, holy shit, this guy's gonna just come out of the PGA Tour and be amazing. But I mean, yeah, he played great at the Safeway. But yeah, I'm not as high on him as other people are, unfortunately. I mean, in this range, I have a little bit of interest in Ryan Moore just because the price went down so much. A lot of that has to do with the course history that he had at the CIMB and the fact that he played poorly last week. But like I said, I'm almost not giving any weight to what happened last week. It's a totally different style of track. Kyle Stanley has been he's been great. Yeah. I mean, just consistently good. If I was playing cash, I think Kyle Stanley would be a great cash play. Just kind of living in that like 15th to 20th range, but he has had a couple second place finishes last year. If we look back, so he's 13th CIMB, then he's 15th at the Tour Championship, 12th at the Dell, second at the Bridgestone. I mean, I think 8,200 is a great price for him this week. And I'm never a big fan of, and we have very limited stats from last week. We don't have any shot link data, so no strokes gain stats. But ball striking on the PGA Tour is driving accuracy and greens and regulation. They're both horrible stats, but that's all we have to go off of from this event last week. And he was second, so driving accuracy, GIR. He hit the ball well, from what we can tell. I know that's a little probably noisy, crappy stats, but that's what we have to work with. So yeah, I love Stanley, and some interest in Moore and some interest in Nah for me.
And they're not that bad. I mean, GIR is a pretty, it's a very, very strong correlation to strokes gained approach. You'd rather have strokes gained approach, but if you don't have anything, like GIR is something. With you on, like, Stanley just seems, he came in 5th at the WGC event here last year too, which is next week, right? And that's like, that's a big kid event.
He's surprised me. He's one of those guys, like, if you're not paying attention, he had some high finishes, but he had quite a few, like, of those T15, T12s, just very, very strong finishes. And I think in this field, I really like him.
Yep, I think that's probably fair. The one sort of knock on him is that he's not a great putter, which makes it tough for sort of scoring stuff. But yeah, if he's one of the classic, if that guy hits every fourth 12-footer as opposed to every 7th, like, then that's the massive difference, and that's the difference between like a pretty good week and just the smash week. Can you guys hear that truck outside of my house?
It's true. I don't know it sounds like a bank heist.
Can you tell him to stop that?
We're recording
exactly. That's the Brinks truck backing up the Kyle Stanley money that we're in.
Trying to podcast here.
It's and I know you guys just mentioned it. Those were some really strong fields. It's not like he beat up on garbage. Like, those are the best, much stronger than this field. And he's been there. He really is a quality player, a guy that I definitely underrate on him this week, though. So probably a recipe for disaster that we all like Kyle Stanley, but
he can't miss the cut. All right, so we've got that going for us.
Yep,
gonna see 72.
Can RCB miss the cut?
So where is RCB here? 79.
That's a crazy price tag.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. Yeah, this is a weird range because you got a couple guys who played really well last week, and then you have CT Pan and RCB. Actually, that's 3 guys who played really well last week. Don't know exactly what I want to do from that. I was really big. Hadley was the catalyst for me having a good week last week. He was awesome.
Yeah, same.
I think I'm going to definitely temper expectations with him. Not that I think it's a bad spot, but he is a kind of erratic, and I thought the Birdie Fest was more his speed. RCB is just such a better player than these other guys. I know Pan's playing well, but I think I'll lean to the talent in a vacuum.
Yeah, the one thing I would say is if it's, and again, you can make certain stacks this way with guys, like, don't play Chesson Hadley with Brandon Grace. But you can play guys with Hadley that if you think it is more of a birdie fest, Hadley is one of those dudes. I remember looking this up at one point last year. He's just like amazing with his irons from the fairway, but just absolute disaster if he's in the rough. So he's one of those guys that so much of his success relies, even though his best attribute is his second shot, so much of his success relies on his first shot because he needs to be in the right spot for it. And if this place has super generous fairways and is pretty short, he should be able to hit those, have some clean looks, and he's deadly when he's got clean looks. So
it's not like he's not in play. It's just like you just talked about. I think he's more set to, his mindset is always attack. He goes low, but
that's why he's so good on the web.com tour where he belongs.
Yeah, he does certainly does not belong, but it's all those webbies have. We have talked about this a lot. I think the last thing that most of them get is the grinded, like how to hold it together at harder courses. They're used to these ridiculous shootouts where minus 26, like Leishman, is the winner. That, I mean, scores are going to be good. They're not going to be like that regardless of what we think in terms of difficulty.
Yes.
He might, Hadley might, he's only like 105 pounds. If it gets windy, he could get blown right off the island.
Off the peninsula?
Like, yeah, I would check the weather before you play him. So
battle tested.
Got to be careful about that one.
Who, oh yeah, you know who's down here? Your boy, Neiman, back, man, the shine is, golf community, I tell you what, people are quick to throw him back. He was the hottest thing, and now a couple so-so starts. Now he's down to 7,600.
He's going to be like 45% owned.
Popular. It's hard not to like him, but
yeah, is it that much of an advantage for him at a short course with super wide fairways? Like, isn't this kind of a bad fit? Like, what does he do best? He's one of those very, very rare long and straight players.
It's going to depend, and I don't know the answer to this. Like, at what point is length not an advantage? Now, if he can just be so aggressive where he's literally hitting in like pitching wedges every hole, that's great. But on some of these holes, you're going to be, having to club down, and then you're not playing to his strength. So I don't think it's the best fit. And if it's hard, forget it. And I even think you guys would agree, unlike Cantlay, is actually a terrible scrambler. He cannot scramble at all.
That's confirmed, yes.
Yeah. Ken is your boy Ian Poulter.
Pass.
Just doing that to I don't know. Tim, do you have any interest in Ian Poulter whatsoever?
No. The only thing that caught my eye on Poulter, just from like outright odds perspective, he seems like he's a little bit underpriced. I have him at like 52 to 1. But yeah, I'm not a Poulter guy. I don't play him.
I'm not a Poulter guy either, but 52 to 1 for that's pretty juicy.
Yeah. I don't know.
With a non-cut 78, man, it's not terrible.
Yeah, and he's very, very, very high variance. You wouldn't think it, but man, he is up and down.
If Abraham Answer becomes an elite golfer, I'm going to lose so much money because I just have no faith in that guy, but he's actually playing good golf. But I don't know. I don't think I can go there. But geez, I don't know if it was because he had a really bad season one year and I just have it stuck in my head that he's awful, but I don't know. He's just one of those guys I can't I never seem to play, but he's playing well. Siwoo Kim made the second most birdies last week. I wouldn't mind playing him. I'm definitely playing Kevin Chappell. I don't know what I mean, but he finished 10th. He played well last week.
He did, yeah.
And he's still cheap. I don't really understand what happened. I thought he was underpriced last week, and he played well. He didn't make you had to really try hard to make a bogey, but he didn't make a bogey through his first 36 holes. He finished 10th. I think he could only benefit by maybe a little bit tougher scoring environment. He's not a guy that you would really think would fare amazingly well. I mean, at the price, he was a good play. 26 under winning score probably isn't in his wheelhouse, but I think a tougher scoring environment is even better for him. So yeah, I'm not sure why he's this cheap. It seems like he's underpriced again, so I'm going back to Chappell. Shocking.
And at a crazy birdie fest, if he's not making bogeys, but also not like right at the tip top, just like pretty good, that means he's like not getting a ton of birdies, but he's avoiding bogey a lot. At a birdie fest, that usually means he's playing really well tee to green and just not hitting putts. So that's always a positive sign. He's not a great putter, but maybe it comes back.
Yeah, and the kind of another thing I wanted to throw in is this like these extreme birdie fests. It's like so hard. I mean, you look at a guy that shot 15, 16 under, and you finish middle of the pack, and it's like if you're if you're not converting all of these birdies, it's really hard to keep up, and you can kind of just get left behind by not even playing poor golf. So yeah, it's for me, it's really hard to kind of take what happened last week and really apply it to this week based on just the environment that we saw at the CIMB.
I mean, just in a vacuum, like what you were just talking about, you got guys who just for their personal game, they look and they played pretty well. Now you look, they came in 35th because they only shot 15 under. But for what they did, that's not terrible. Now, obviously, on a course that's very easy and stuff, you need to go lower. But I don't think that's why I'm with you. I want my guys to have played last week, but if they didn't have a stellar week, it's not like I'm writing them off by any stretch.
Yeah, it's like it's hard to expect. I don't know, it sounds weird, but it's like hard to expect a guy to shoot better than like 16 under. I mean, like you shoot 4 under par rounds. I don't care how easy it's playing. That's pretty good. But then you look at a guy that shot 16 under and it's like he finished T35. So yeah, it's like those really low scoring events as far as like recent form or figuring out like how well they actually played, especially without stats. It's really hard. Guys can just get left behind if they're not converting all those birdie opportunities.
For sure. Yeah. Chappell got you. You went outside and handled the truck over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
Had to run outside. Yeah.
We
Beat up some union guys. I'm not going to be popular around here.
We did have one real quick question from Chad from Spence. Just asking, is this only for golf on Tuesdays? Yeah, that's what we're going to be talking. Rest of the shows, Monday and Friday is going to be football predominantly. Thursdays, three fellas. And then tomorrow, I think we're going to mix it up. We're going to talk some golf, though. It'll be our normally late show, but we can't do that because these golf tournaments are locking in the middle of the day on Wednesdays.
We're going to talk about Celtics Sixers for 25 minutes tomorrow. So get ready for it.
That'll be a ratings bonanza. Fair, you boys. Who else?
It's the one team I still give a shit about. So, I mean, I like the Patriots when it comes, playoff time, but
Super Bowl time, roll out of bed.
Exactly. It's that easy.
Do you guys think that Austin Cook's another guy his price just never adjusts? And we were on him last week. He's just churning out good quality showings. I didn't even think a Birdie Fest was his ideal conditions, and he still got it done. It's hard not to look at him just from a price standpoint.
Yeah, he scored a ton of points.
Yeah, he's just good.
I'm like the only guy in our circle of people that never plays Austin.
I was with you, but I've started to play him. Now I'm kind of addicted.
Yeah, when you play a guy and he plays well, it's kind of addicting. I don't know what that feels like though. Usually, just play guys that play awful. So,
Bo Hostler's down there, another one of you boys.
He was another one. So ball striking, he was 4th in ball striking last week. So it's like I feel so dumb. It's like you're trying to like really read the tea leaves for what happened last week based on some really antiquated stats, but it's all we have to look at. I'm going to assume he didn't putt well, but yeah, I wouldn't mind going back to Hostler, especially like we always say, if he's going to be low owned, he's kind of boomer busts. And, he's, from what we can tell, he struck it pretty well last week. Which
is, for him in particular, kind of obscene because he is the putting god. So it's like, if he even struck it remotely good, he should have won by like 30 strokes because he was gaining, he had tournaments where he was gaining like 10 strokes putting, which is ridiculous. Like if you're not familiar, that's absurd. So you would think if the ball striking even gets to a level that's standard, he's going to be churning out some really big finishes coming up.
And I mean, that might be like the one time this year he actually strikes the ball.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you can say, be predictive with that, but he did apparently strike it pretty well last week.
Now we get, that's like once you see Charles' name, we get into the real shady characters. We got Charles.
You're locking Charles in. We already this is a
Keith Mitchell. There's some real bad, just crazy men down here. And again, I think the easiest way to sum it up is build correlated. Like if you want to get aggressive, Charles, Keith Mitchell guys, I get it. He's guys like Woodland up top with them. Then you have people like Hadwin who, Stuart Sink. They're more kind of consistent, easygoing, not crazy. And in a non-cut, it's a blend. You don't need 6 wild men.
JJ Spawn might not be good at golf. I think.
Yeah,
I think I'm ready to jump off the bandwagon.
What happened last week?
I don't know. I was getting trolled by people. It was like when you tout a guy that shoots even par and winning score is 26 under.
I mean,
never good.
I would wake up and I would just sort the leaderboard by that round, and I would scroll right to the bottom, and it would just be like, oh wow, he was like 1 over, a birdie and 2 bogeys, and then everyone else not only did, like you said, 8, 9 under was like, oh yeah, nice round. Just I don't know what happened. I thought that course would fit him great.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm off. This will be the first week since about the middle of last year I'm off of Spawn. I'm 100% playing Ryan Palmer. Now I'm not going to play him 100% of my lineups, but I will definitely be going back to Ryan Palmer. He finished middle of the road last week, but I mean, anytime there's no cut, I mean, 6,500 is an egregiously cheap price. I'll go back there. Down here, there's not a ton of guys I'm really interested in. Just 2 guys who are kind of, real golfers mixed in with a bunch of creative players. Brian Gay, 6,300, James Hahn, 6,200. If you have to go down here, a little bit like last week, there are, 10 or so, I don't know if they're Asian tour guys or just Korean golfers that got exemptions, but yeah, I'm not messing around with any of those guys. But yeah, I mean, Gay and Hahn are 2 guys who are very cheap. And for a no-cut event, I think if you need to go down here to make some stars and scrubs lineups, that's where I would be looking. Yeah,
there's a handful of guys here that I think just, don't mess around with them unless you find them. I briefly looked at who these guys were. A lot of Asian tour players, not a ton of data or experience. The UPS man at Andrews Tour. That's right. He had to go handle a package. We'll see if he ever returns. I'm with you. I think, as crazy as this sounds, Ryan Palmer, again, he fits what I kind of want in the sense he played last week. We know he can go low. It's just a matter of can he putt. And with conditions that I expect, like most, it's not going to play as hard as we saw last year. He can go. And even if it is windy, I mean, he's a Texan guy. He can play in the wind. That's not a big deal.
I was going to mention that and I forgot. Damn.
Yeah, it's true, man. It's see, I got one. That's right in his wheelhouse. It's more with him, can he avoid, and we will never know, but he just needs to make his 4-footers. That's sometimes a problem with him.
It's probably better to roster Ryan Palmer on a week where there's no shot tracker because you just don't know. It'll say shot 3 to the green, and then it'll be like, or shot 2 to the green, and it'll be like 3, 4, and he made a par, and you won't know that he really hit it to like 6 feet and missed that putt over and over and over again. So this is a perfect week for Ryan Palmer.
Way less till up. Yeah, there he is. The UPS man, you handled that as well.
No, the truck guys came back, dude. They just beat my ass. I walk into Ryan Palmer talk. What is happening here?
You missed it. I already got the good point about him being good in the wind. We got into the dumpster divers. There's really not that much down here. I mean, I don't know how aggressive I'm going to be. Scott Piercy's one more I'll throw out. Kind of in the Ryan Palmer mode of just like, it's super scary. But I don't know. Did he kind of did enough last week, as pathetic as that sounds, to have me be like, okay, he's not a complete disaster.
He did show up for a little bit. I feel like he wasn't in like second place for a while. He was
first.
Yeah.
And then he only shot 6 under, and then he got laughed by guys.
Oh God.
I mean, honestly, just like last week, it's the same concept. You want to build to a narrative. You don't want to go unnecessary risk. And you do have to leverage ownership still. I mean, that's the name of the game in a tournament where there's just not that many factors to rely on.
Yeah. That's true. All right. Did you guys? I just want to briefly make sure we did the checklist here. Did you make fun of Keith Mitchell?
Yeah, but not as much as we probably should have.
Okay. Did you talk about Nick Watney?
No. Go ahead.
Does anyone have any interest there? That's another guy who's like, our friends were more on than it's like the Austin Cook, where like our buddies that we hang out with and chat all the time, like got us onto him a little bit. I don't know. Watney seems he's more of an off the tee guy. And if that's not as big of an advantage here, maybe not so much. Not a lot of interest there, clearly. Did you talk about Adam Hadwin and his implosion a couple weeks ago?
We did mention Adam Hadwin, but what shifted was we ripped on your boy JJ Spawn for his utterly awful performance. Like, he was playing the U.S. Open while everyone else was playing just a carnival course.
I think he made like 4 birdies the whole week.
Very bad.
It was like an actual discussion. This has happened to me twice now. This was an actual discussion where my last piece in my high stakes lineup was like, should I play Chesson Hadley instead of X? And this happened last year when Chesson Hadley was $10,000, and it was, should I play Chesson Hadley over Ryan Moore because I have the money to do it? And it was like, no, I could never possibly do that. Last year, that was at the JJ Spawn Meltdown tournament. I would have won the $300 to $500 tournament had I played Hadley instead. This year, I would have done it if I had played Hadley instead of stupid JJ Spawn. Chesson Hadley is truly the worst, is where I would like to bring that back.
I love that guy. I get him right more often than not, but Spawn.
Cool. Well, enjoy that. He's cost me like $50,000.
I'm telling you, he gets a bad rap because he's very fluky. Spawn, though, man, you and me, I think we all were disappointed with that. That was, it's one tournament. I don't want to get crazy, but man, that was disappointing.
He was bad at the Safeway. I've been pretty heavily invested in Spawn for probably the last quarter of last year into this year, and yeah, it hasn't really paid dividends. Yeah, just say that.
Yeah, real talk down there. I think I'd rather play Hadwin or Brian Harmon. Like, again, real players that can get super hot. They've had some blow-up-y kind of things going on lately, but you can recover from that here. Whatever, not really. You can't do what JJ Spawn did last week, but
it's all relative, though. Like, here, I would venture to say posting around where you're 1 under is not a killer by any stretch. Like, whereas last week, if you didn't go, unless you had a round where you were like 11 under, you needed 4 really low rounds. That's not going to be the case. I don't think, at least.
Yeah, fair enough. Louie Guafita, Spawn stinks. You're right, man.
Yes.
Yeah, it's hard to really retort that. It's disappointing. I don't know. I hope he gets it together, but that was a great setup, like short course. Everything was perfect, and he just didn't show up. Now, again, I do want to put this caveat. There's a chance that Spawn lost like 40 strokes putting. We won't know, and we'll never know. It's not like we can tell what exactly happened.
Maybe we should ask him on Twitter. Let's be like, were you awful with the putter? Because
Tim always gets to the bottom. He was the first to find out that Kevin Chappell was not injured. He was just bad, which was good stuff last year.
Did you see Eddie Fear, our NBA guy, was like talking with Phil on Twitter last night? Phil Mickelson responded to him.
Really? Yes, I did not see that.
Something about high kicks.
Yeah, something about don't do that in the cold or you'll pull a groin. And Phil was just like, nope, I'm too good. Or like, it's never a problem. That was pretty funny. Since gambling is legal in some states and will continue to become more so in other ones, and our friend Tim here truly loves to bet on golf. I saw you tweeting about Chappell 80-1 earlier.
Yeah, you got to lock that in. Whenever you can lose more, I'm trying to. If he wins this week, I'll probably be like halfway back to even on him lifetime.
A couple straight W's to get back.
Yeah, he needs a win next week, and then the WGC. I have to be on him both times, and then I'll probably be back to even.
I had him for first round leader and for outright last week, and he was like right there, kind of, but never. It was never really a sweat on either. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, no, I do like him. I know I tend to stick on the same guys just because if I feel like I see something, and sometimes it works when you stick around on the same guys for a while.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it doesn't. But you have to know when to get out. Like Spawn, it's like, okay, I'm done with him. And this is probably where he wins sometime soon. But yeah, I mean, I just like, based on the way that Chappell played last week, it's like nothing changed. Like he came into last week with kind of not good form, hadn't played well in a while, and he actually played well, but none of that is reflected in his DraftKings pricing or his outright odds. He's like literally exactly the same price. It's a little bit stronger field, but not that much stronger. And I think the course should suit him. Yeah, besides that, not really. I don't see much in this.
It's not the best tournament to bet. Like, I in my opinion, just 78 guys.
Yeah, I think that really, I just don't like it. When it's a limited field, you're just never gonna get. I don't know. It's just hard for me to kind of work it out in my head. You're just not, getting the odds you think that you should be getting in a 144, 156 man field. So yeah, it's just, for me, it's not really my cup of tea. But yeah, we'll lose a couple bucks on Chappell.
One tool that I've found pretty helpful, at least specifically for like first round leader bets, and it helps for showdown and stuff like that too, but is the Rover variance score that created, and we have it at Osmo behind the paywall, but you find it will point out to you which guys are sort of the most high variance. So if you've got a player that you like and happens to be super high variance, like those are the kind of plays that you want to go after for sort of the first round leader stuff, the short sample size kind of deals. I've actually been kind of crushing on first round leader bets the last 4 or 5 months since I just kind of started plucking out all the guys that were at the top of that to bet every week.
Saunders of the world.
I don't think Saunders is that weird, if I remember right. But I remember hitting like I hit a Poulter first round leader bet whenever that was. Like that wasn't
that long ago. Yeah, I just remember the one where
$1,200, man. Sweet.
Saunders was like first round leader, and then he missed the cut. Him, Wise, and Mitchell together.
Right, and Wise. Yeah, that was the one
Byron Nelson?
with the funnel at the 8th hole. Right. Yeah, Byron Nelson. Wise won, and yeah, Mitchell stuck around. The three of them were paired together. Also, let's not forget that Sam Saunders 2 weeks ago shot a 66 in the first round and missed the cut. Like, so he's
that's what made me think of him. He's just been, and it's true, that is a really good thing. And you want to, just to get back to what Tim was just saying, I think it's important in DFS and in betting. Like, it's, for me at least, I don't think that I'm good enough to where it's like I'm going to pinpoint a guy for one specific week. Yeah, of course, there's weeks where I like him a little more, but I don't just radically jump on. Like, I will play a guy on the fringe of both of them because, there's a lot of times where you get a little unlucky with variance and your process was right. And in a sport like golf, it's so, fluky to an extent. A guy can miss a cut and then he wins the next week. So if you're jumping on and off irrationally, I think that's really not sound. And then at the same point, you can't just hang on and say, this guy's been awful for months, but I still am going to play him. That's the trickier part.
There's a limit, and that's a very difficult balancing act. I had a really bad 2016 on the whole, and it was because I stuck with Bubba, JB, and Ryan Palmer, who were like previously really good players who all just happened to have career worst years. Palmer might have not have had his career worst year.
That remains to be seen.
This might be his career worst year because I'm playing him now. Look out!
Yeah, he's woof. But yeah, it's a really good point. Look at what happened with Hadley 2 weeks ago. Like, he was really popular then, and like we all had a lot of him. Sucked, but you got to stick with it. And then he T2'd last week at half the ownership. So,
and that was, it's easy to say that now because it worked perfectly, but like he was such a bounce back candidate. And this is the kind of stuff we're going to talk about on the show when we have stats. Like 2 weeks ago, he lost, 4 or 5 strokes putting, and he missed the cut on the number. It looked a lot worse than it really was. So, and then everyone had soured on him. You hung around and you got paid off last week. Now, it doesn't always work like that. It would be nice if it did. But when there's cuts and stuff, a lot of arbitrary things happen, and that really, paints guys in lights that are sometimes inaccurate.
Agreed.
Carl. He's just bad, but
I got people giving me advice on how to deal with the truckers in chat. Thank you.
Man, it was quite
win some money in NBA tonight so you can upgrade the poor person internet that you have, right?
Definitely. Jeff Wilson wants to know, I have a question for you guys. Where can I find DraftKings results to Tourneys at? I have some places that I look, but they are subscriptions. You can.
No idea.
I would. I mean, what I would. I do have an idea, so I was gonna get there, buddy. No, I would check like Reddit or something like that. There's usually you can find some decent data sets for cheap, or there's plenty of, if you got the loot, there's plenty of awesome subscription sites out there. Some of them would have those results for you. I don't believe we have those in house, but we have plenty of other awesome tools here. But yeah, I would look on Reddit for that. Plenty of people talking about plenty of stuff, and that's where I used to find a lot of my data sets. That's where Josh, our producer today, used to hang out. He used to give out all the fire back there before he hopped in over here. All right. Anything else? Any final words from either of you?
No, minor administrative. So
we didn't get to talk about Wes Bryan this week, so we might have ran a little short, but
sad. We'll see. There'll be plenty of Wes Bryan talk in the tourneys to come. He's going to have is he on? Not that, but is he?
Yeah, I was gonna say this might be our last year of getting to talk about Wes Bryan.
Like, I don't know.
I'm confused. I should know this, but like, I don't know what happened. Like, when you win an event,
you get 2 years, I believe.
You do, but I mean, even after that, you'll see like past champions have like some sort of status. I don't know. I feel like I don't want him to go back to the web.com tour. I would lose a lot of my Twitter comedic fodder if he does. But,
yeah, this is what we do. We talk about Wes Bryan.
Yeah, I'm rooting for him.
There's a lot of ridiculous. I don't know how that works either. There's all different priorities.
Rob Bolton would know, but he hates me, so I'm not going to ask him.
The pictures of Wes winning is one of the greatest thing ever, too, because he was wearing like hot pink pants that day, and then he put on that hideous like red plaid jacket.
I think
it's a screaming look. Like, I don't know, good stuff.
Anyway. I was just going to say, tomorrow, our show, it's not going to be at 9 o'clock because that would be a couple hours into the tournament. So you catch us same time. We'll be talking if anything changed. Celtics possibly going undefeated after their 1-0. As Andrew said earlier in the show, if you can, thanks for watching. Obviously, we do appreciate it. Give it a like. It helps us out immensely. We do appreciate it. And, yeah, I mean, other than that, it's just another non-cut. We're getting there. We're getting through these tournaments as best we can. Hopefully Chapel wins for us.
Yeah, definitely. So, and this is a warm-up. That's the big thing. Like, if you're not a DFS golf player, and I know that our stream is a little confusing now because we talk about a bunch of different stuff, but this is always, Tuesday is the straight golf show. If you're not a DFS golf player, it's a really fun sport, and this is a time of year that's really nice to just check it out because you'll learn some guys. Just mess around, play $10 or whatever. You'll learn about some players. You'll learn about the Webbies. That's the big thing, is learning about the Webbies, because a lot of people, most people, ourselves included, are like heavily, heavily focused on football right now. So you can, if you're playing now, you can at least start to gain some familiarity with some of these guys for when in January these tournaments start to, like the DFS tournaments, start to get huge and everyone's back and there's plenty of cash to play. And, golf is a profitable sport if you know what you're it can be a very profitable sport if you really are paying attention, and a lot of people don't. So check it out. This is the time of year to play. I'm rambling because the guys were choking me for a little bit, and I had the air in my brain cut off a little bit. No, just kidding. I just haven't slept because I'm too sports rich. All right. Good talking to you guys. Thanks as always. Josh, pleasure talking to you. Thanks everyone for watching. Like us on YouTube if you can, and we will talk to you tomorrow.